I have a concept of predictions. Rossi Posse Packer Nation. Welcome to another episode of Packcast, the podcast where you don't have to be a Packers fan, but it sure does help. I'm your host, Tom. I honestly didn't do as bad as I thought I would do in week one. Grossi, and today we are going to be going through and breaking down every single game heading into week 2 of the NFL season. Week 1, here's how things went. 11-5 is the actual prediction that I had. However, it'll say 10-6 on the site because, and it happens every single year, I accidentally chose the wrong team. I accidentally clicked the Titans instead of the Bears. But I picked the Bears on the internet, so just allow it. It's going to happen throughout the season. However, there were some that did not get a single game wrong. We had 3 people in the Pick'em League, which, by the way, you can join. The link is in the description, completely and totally free. We had 3 people go 16-0. We had the UK Pats fan. Let's go. We had my dog as a Pats fan, too. Not a Patriots fan. And I believe in Tom Grossi. So a huge congratulations to all 3 of you. And you all 3 might actually be the real scriptwriter. And so starting off with Thursday Night Football, you got the Buffalo Bills taking on the Miami Dolphins. The Bills and the Dolphins getting a win last week, both in comeback wins in which you had the Bills. They had a rough start against the Arizona Cardinals, and they scored 21 unanswered points. Josh Allen doing Josh Allen things, and to think that Brian Daboll went from coaching Josh Allen to Daniel Jones. And the Dolphins, they had an abysmal first half against the Jacksonville Jaguars, but they rallied back. Tyreek Hill with an 80-yard touchdown, and they got the big win as well. Heading into this week, the Dolphins dealing with some injuries. Raheem Mostert already ruled out for Thursday, and Achane is day-to-day. However, he did practice today, even though it was light practice, so hopefully that is a good sign. And these 2 teams, when they meet, it is usually going the Bills' favor. Tua is 1-6 against the Buffalo Bills, and considering they have some running backs that are dealing with some injuries right now, I do have some concerns. Looking at the Bills, while they did get off to a rough start against the Cardinals, the way that Josh Allen took over that game, he's just the guy to do that. And Josh Allen just keeps on beating the Miami Dolphins. And while this is being played in Miami, the better situation would have been if it was a day game because we know that the Bills are not really good in the heat. Unfortunately, though, Thursday night, a short week, and considering the Dolphins are a little banged up right now, I am going to go with the Buffalo Bills to get the win. And Dolphins, it's just going to be 1-7 for Tua. Sorry. Following that, you got the New Orleans Saints taking on the Dallas Cowboys. Both teams having big wins last week. The Saints absolutely demolishing the Carolina Panthers. And we'll see how tough this Saints offense is when they face a real defense.
What about that guy?
Don't be silly. He's not bothering anybody. I mean, not like that guy.
Who, me?
Sorry, Panthers. It's just, it's true. But the Saints, they really impressed me last week. And I know it is against the Panthers, and everyone's just talking about how bad the Panthers are. But Derek Carr looked pretty damn good. Shaheed with that big-time touchdown. Carr was really, really efficient throughout the day. The defense was really good. It's just hard to get an accurate gauge on them without them playing a better football team. And they are going to play a better football team in the Dallas Cowboys. The Cowboys went into Cleveland and absolutely smoked the Browns, in which Deshaun Watson couldn't do anything. Partially because Micah Parsons and that defense got after him, but also because the Cleveland Browns offense is just non-existent right now. Meanwhile, the Cowboys offense was efficient during the day, and they did more than enough to beat the Cleveland Browns, and they're going up against a good Saints defense. They were able to handle the Cleveland Browns defense, so I think they should be fine against New Orleans. They're playing at home, which the Cowboys have a great home field advantage, at least during the regular season, because we know what happens during the playoffs. And so because of that, I am going to go with the Dallas Cowboys to get a win in front of their home crowd. But if the Saints can be competitive, maybe they're a little bit better than people thought this year. Then you got the Tampa Bay Buccaneers taking on the Detroit Lions. This should be an amazing game. The Lions beat the Rams last week and are now taking on the Buccaneers. Wait a minute, didn't I just see this in January?
There is something so familiar about this. Do you ever have deja vu?
Didn't you just ask me that?
But the Buccaneers able to defeat the Commanders. Baker Mayfield was bacon. Really, really good last week. And I'm so happy for Baker Mayfield because not only did he get a new contract, but he gets to still throw the ball to Mike Evans, who's still catching amazing touchdown passes. Their offense looked really damn good. Taking on the Lions, who... ooh, they were impressive. Their secondary looked to be improved, and I got to give props to the Rams because the Rams did come to play, and I know they suffered a bunch of injuries, especially to their front and also to Puka, but the Lions, especially in that overtime drive, they were real, real good. They just marched down the field, had their way with the Rams in overtime, and were able to end that game quickly. So the Lions, they are contenders. The Buccaneers, they look really damn good. Of course, I love Graham Barton. I wanted the Packers to draft him, but that's neither here nor there. This should be an excellent game. It's a rematch of the divisional round last year. It's being played at Ford Field again, and I think that crowd is going to be buzzing for this. I am going to go with the Lions here because their secondary looked better than it did last season, even though we only got a small sample size. They were going up against a good Rams team. And on top of that, I think the ground game with Gibbs being more healthy heading into this week and looking at their trenches, I think the Lions are just a better put together football team. Even though I expect this to be a close game, I'm going with Detroit here. But if the Buccaneers win, I wouldn't hate it. Following that, you got the Indianapolis Colts taking on the Green Bay mother-loving Packers. The Colts, a lot to be excited about. Anthony Richardson only completing 9 passes, but damn, those passes that he completed looked good. The highs of Anthony Richardson are really, really high. And the lows, he just has to be more consistent and a little bit more accurate. But the Colts are an exciting team this year. And if Anthony Richardson can develop because he's only played for 5 seconds, they are going to be a really good football team. They already have the run game. They already have the receivers. Alec Pierce is the deep threat. Michael Pittman is great. I am a little concerned about that run defense of the Colts because Joe Mixon ran all over them, and I just got to hope that the Packers can do the same. Meanwhile, for the Packers, even though it's not likely that Jordan Love is going to start, apparently he is just week to week. He is not going on IR, and he could come back sooner than expected.
If I'm not back in 5 minutes, just wait longer.
Please come back, Jordan. I miss you. But the Packers in a losing effort against the Philadelphia Eagles in Brazil, and they had many opportunities. They forced turnovers, whether it was interceptions or fumbles, and their offense just could not capitalize. The run game really didn't get going until the second half where Josh Jacobs really started to get some momentum, and they are going to have a really good run game against the Colts. Like I said before, Mixon was able to do it, but Malik Willis is likely going to be the starter here. And Malik Willis, there's some to be desired. You do have the running element here. However, you have the Colts who are also familiar with Malik Willis. And while I do think the Packers are at a significant disadvantage not having Jordan Love, they are playing at home. And I'm me. So you know who's winning. It's Malik Willis time. That's right. You think that Malik Willis is going to lose this game? Malik Willis is going to raise the Green Bay Packers to heights they never thought possible until Jordan Love comes back. And what I mean by that is that the Packers get the win. Malik Willis over 100 rushing yards. Josh Jacobs over 100 rushing yards. And you might say, Tom, you're delusional. And I would say, yes, Packers win. Following that, you got the New Jersey Jets taking on the Tennessee Titans. The Jets... I mean, it was better than last year besides the whole not winning thing, but Aaron Rodgers can still sling the ball, though limited in his mobility. The problem was kind of everything else around Aaron Rodgers. The offensive line wasn't ideal. The defensive line was not good. They could not stop the run at all, and Mason ran all over them. They had no pass rush. They really need to get Hassan Reddick back on this team. And yeah, the Jets, it's week 1. They're just kind of figuring it out. Meanwhile, the Titans... you are up 17-0, and then Will Levis just handed the Bears the game.
Take it, Gandalf. Take it.
No further.
You must take it.
You cannot offer me this ring.
I'm giving it to you.
And it's just so frustrating because, 1, the Bears got the win, but 2, you want to see more from Will Levis. And as I've been talking about this whole offseason, the additions to the Titans, I really like what they did. Got new coaching staff, got new O-line coach. O-line, you would hope to be better. And unfortunately, they blew a major lead last week, and the Bears offense didn't even have to score a single touchdown. This is being played in Tennessee, and I think that Titans defense can make a really big impact on the game. If they can stop Breece Hall and get after Aaron Rodgers, who, like I said, didn't really look very mobile in week 1, they have a chance to win this game. However, it's going to come down to that offense. Can Pollard and a strong running game overcome any potential mistakes from Will Levis? Can Will Levis play better? Those are the questions. I imagine the Titans are going to try to run it down the Jets' throat because that's what they saw the 49ers do, and that's their one weak point in that run defense. However, I am going to go with the Jets getting a bounce-back win. I do think that there's some week one jitters, and Aaron Rodgers usually doesn't play too well in week one. But more importantly, I think if they're able to establish the run against this good defensive front, or they're able to get Garrett Wilson more involved with the game, or at least just get some kind of pass rush and pressure on Will Levis, they should be able to win. So here, I'm going with the Jets, though I don't think it's going to be pretty. Then you got the San Francisco 49ers taking on the Minnesota Vikings. And oh look, Aaron Rodgers lost to the 49ers again.
Oh, there's a big surprise. That's an incredible. I think I'm going to have a heart attack and die from that surprise.
But the 49ers looked like one of the best teams in week one. Shanahan had them just prepared for that game. No CMC, no problem. As I mentioned before, Mason had a great game. Brock Purdy was efficient. Their defense did more than enough to stop Breece Hall, and they just were a great football team. Long sustained drives that ended in points, and the time of possession was outrageous. Meanwhile, the Minnesota Vikings outplayed a ton of people's expectations. Sam Darnold looked really, really good. Talking about efficiency, Justin Jefferson picking up right where he left off, and Aaron Jones. Aaron Jones looked really good too. That's just great. It doesn't hurt me at all. Being played in Minnesota, where the 49ers do not have a whole lot of luck, maybe this is going to be a competitive game. The Vikings might be better than people anticipated. However, just like the Saints, I think there is some pumping of the brakes that needs to happen because they went up against a bad Giants team. And here, I think the 49ers should be able to get the win. If the Vikings do wind up getting the win, then oh crap, they are going to be better than a lot of people anticipated. I can't live in that reality. And so because of that, for my own sanity, I got to go with the 49ers. And plus, I think they're the much better football team. Following that, you got the Seattle Seahawks taking on the New England Patriots. And after moving on from their long-term coaches, both teams were able to get a win last week.
A new age has begun.
The Seahawks had a little bit of a rough start in which there was two safeties. Geno didn't look too good. And then that second half started in which that defense looked real good. Geno was able to have that run for a touchdown. And the Seahawks looked like they had a little bit more figured out against the Denver Broncos. And considering all the hype after getting McDonald this offseason, the defense in that second half looked like it started living up to expectations. I'm curious to see how that's going to look as the season progresses. Their offense, we'll see how Geno plays down the stretch. But, of course, they have a great support staff in the running game and also at receiver. They're going to be taking on the New England Patriots, who shocked the world and also ended a lot of survivor pools by beating the Cincinnati Bengals last week. The Bengals just did not look like they came ready to play, and the Patriots, they had a good defense. Mayo got his first win, and also Stevenson, the guy they re-signed this offseason, seemed to be a very good investment as the Patriots were able to run the ball efficiently, stop anything that Joe Burrow was trying to do, and they got the big-time win. This is going to be, I think, a relatively close game. It's being played in New England. You know that that crowd is going to be hot for the home opener. And a win here might give a different look on the Patriots. A lot of people expected them to be very, very bad. I didn't expect them to be a great football team. I said they were going to have a solid defense. We were going to see about the offense, though. A lot of question marks there, especially at offensive line. But I think the Seattle Seahawks, if they show up like they did in the second half last week, they should be able to get the win here. Even though Geno might struggle a little bit with that Patriots defense, I think the defense of the Seahawks might give Jacoby Brissett even more issues. And so because of that, I'm going with the Seahawks. Then you have an NFC East showdown between the New Jersey Giants and the Washington Commanders. The Giants, not great. Absolutely decimated by the Vikings last week. Daniel Jones did not look good. The boos were raining down. And all Giants fans right now, they are not happy with Daniel Jones.
Get that son of a bitch off the field right now. Out. He's fired. He's fired!
Which, to be fair, you should be not happy with your front office because Daniel Jones didn't get rid of Saquon Barkley and Xavier McKinney, but that's neither here nor there. The Giants weren't really expected to be a great football team this year. Their defensive line, I would say, is probably going to be their strong suit. Andrew Thomas did play a nice game last week. However, everything else is kind of poopy caca. You got rid of Saquon Barkley, and Singletary, I don't think, is going to be the guy who is going to be able to carry that offense. Daniel Jones has never really done enough to warrant the kind of money that he is getting, but hey, go get your money, my friend. And they're taking on the Commanders, Commanders. Jaden Daniels, who probably looked like the best rookie QB from this past week, was able to scamper for a couple of touchdowns. Both teams have terrible offensive lines, and taking a look at both secondaries, I don't think either of them are really good either. So this is going to be an interesting game. It's being played at FedEx Field, and you would think that the experience of Daniel Jones, and I think Brian Daboll's a good coach, is going to get the Giants the win. But after what I saw last week, I just can't in good conscience yet pick the Giants to win a football game. So because of that, even though the Commanders, I don't think they're blowing anybody away, I think Jaden Daniels might be able to do enough. It's the first time the Giants are facing off against him to win that football game. I'm going to pick the Commanders here. I don't think it's going to be a pretty game. There might be 25 sacks, but yeah, Commies, you get the W. Following that, you got the LA Chargers taking on the Carolina Panthers. The Chargers getting a big win last week, a run-first team now, in which Joe Alt is leading the way. You got J.K. Dobbins, who had himself a really nice game, and this is the exciting part about being a Chargers fan. You already have your franchise QB. If you could get that ground game to be really efficient and really good, this team is going to be a balanced football team, and I know that there is a shortage of receivers right now, though Ladd McConkey wound up scoring his first touchdown last week, so that was really good. I'm curious to see how the Chargers are going to do this year. I think they're going to kind of be like a middle-of-the-road team, like a little bit better maybe just because they have better coaching than they did for the past many, many years. But the Chargers, they're an interesting team heading into this week. Taking on the Carolina Panthers, which, yeah, if there was a team that performed worse than the Giants, it was the Panthers. Bryce Young on his first pass attempt threw an interception, and after week 1, it's already about that time.
Looks like it's time to give up.
And I hate to say that about any young QB because Bryce Young did look really good against the Joe Barry Packers defense last year, but things just don't look good. And I know it's against the Saints and it's a divisional team, but nothing was working for the Panthers last week. And you just got to hope that maybe they can find an identity. And while they did bring in new receivers, it's just going to be tough if Bryce Young can't complete some of those passes. So yeah, it's being played at home for the Panthers. I don't think this is going to be fun. I think the Chargers are going to run the ball down their throat. And yeah, Chargers get the win. Then you got the Cleveland Browns taking on the Jacksonville Jaguars. The Browns, we talked about this before, an abysmal showing against the Dallas Cowboys. Deshaun Watson was really, really bad. The offense wasn't doing anything. I talked about this stat during Power Rankings too, that at late in the third quarter, 50% of the plays were either going for 0 or negative yards. They just looked lost. I don't think Stefanski's play calling was good. Deshaun Watson didn't play well. It was just a mess all the way around. And I don't know what the Cleveland Browns are going to do at quarterback. Meanwhile, they're taking on the Jaguars. The Jaguars, who blew another game that they should have won.
This looks strangely familiar. Because we've been here before. We're going in circles.
And the Jaguars have some questions to answer this season, and a lot of those questions can be aimed at their coaching. Trevor Lawrence got a big payday during this offseason, I think rightfully earned. He just got to reduce those turnovers. But the Jaguars, they just seem like the ultimate team of missed potential. Last year, we hyped the crap out of the Jaguars. They never really lived up to it. I know they got hurt later in the year, but that offense never was really clicking. Their defense, I love aspects of it, but again, they can't be blowing leads, especially to other AFC opponents that they're going to be competing for playoff contention with. Taking a look at this Browns team heading in, I believe in their defense 100%. The Jaguars need to win this game. Their defense is going to give Trevor Lawrence a tough time, I think, but if ETN can hold on to the ball and they're able to close out games, they should be able to get the win. They should be able to stop whatever Deshaun Watson is throwing at them. Jerome Ford, I like him as a running back, but again, if the Jaguars can contain that run game and force Deshaun Watson to just be a passer, the Jaguars should get this win. I'm picking them to get the win in front of their home crowd. And yeah, Jaguars, don't blow this one. Then you got the Vegas Raiders taking on the Baltimore Ravens. The Raiders, defense, you got it. All the hype for the defense. They looked pretty good against the Chargers. Your offense? No. And again, this offseason was all question marks on the offensive side of the ball. They went and got Christian Wilkins on that D-line. Max Crosby was really ineffective against Joe Alt. That was such a good draft pick. And you're going to assume that Max Crosby is going to have a bigger impact on what was not a great offensive line performance this past Thursday night against the Chiefs. And Minshew, 257 yards, 1 TD, 1 interception. I think that offense definitely can get better. You have to look at that run game and see if they can get that going a little bit more. Devontae Adams got to be even more involved with it. But But the Raiders offense, I think it's going to take time for them to make adjustments. Meanwhile, the Baltimore Ravens, that was a rough Thursday night game in which their offensive line didn't look really good. Lamar Jackson did just about everything. Zay Flowers was really good. And considering that Isaiah likely lost that game by a toe, you got to wonder if he's going to try to fit into some smaller cleats this week.
I'll make it fit.
But all jokes aside, the Ravens, I think, are still going to be a good football team. And even with all the problems they had on Thursday night, they still almost tied up that game or got 1 point away from tying that game. And that's something to be said because the Chiefs are obviously a really good football team. The Ravens this week back in Baltimore taking on the Raiders, who, again, their offense looked real sluggish against the Chargers. I think the Ravens should be able to get a bounce back win here. As long as the Ravens are able to contain whatever the Raiders offense is trying to do and Lamar Jackson can run away from Max Crosby and Christian Wilkins, I think they'll get the win. So Baltimore, fly high. And if you don't win, Then, one of the toughest games to predict this week, you got the LA Rams taking on the Arizona Cardinals. The Rams had a really valiant effort against the Detroit Lions, especially after losing Puka and offensive linemen. They did the best that they possibly could. And the Rams, I know there's some high expectations this year, and I still think they can be a very, very good football team. Cooper Kupp and Matthew Stafford don't look like they lost a single step. And they're taking on the Arizona Cardinals, who started off really, really strong against the Bills. But unfortunately, Kyler Murray, even though he played well, couldn't measure up to Josh Allen.
Come here, I'm gonna eat you! I'm bigger than you, I'm higher in the food chain! Get in my belly!
And the Cardinals, as I've been talking about, they're my sneaky pick for a potential wild card berth this year. And the way they played in the first half against the Bills, I was like, oh, this was a good pick. And then the second half happened and it wasn't a good pick anymore. This being played at home, I went back and forth a lot because the Rams are dealing with injuries and because the Cardinals played pretty well in that first half. I almost went with the Cardinals. However, I am going to go with the Rams getting the win here. I do think that Matthew Stafford, if he can get that protection and link up with Cooper Kupp, Kyren Williams could be more involved in the run game, they should be able to win. I would not be surprised if the Cardinals wind up getting the win here, because if Marvin Harrison Jr., for example, could get more involved than just one catch for 4 yards, and they could actually hit him for some touchdowns, I think that they could get the win, but I am going to go with the Rams. I think they're a better coached football team, and even though they're dealing with some injuries, the weapons that the Rams have, I think, outweigh what the Cardinals currently have going on. Because Marvin Harrison Jr., it's going to take time for him to develop. So yeah, Rams get the win. I think it's going to be a really close game, and Cardinals, prove me wrong. And then you have the game that was ruined. It was stolen from us. We were supposed to have the Rust Bowl, and now we got Justin Fields, and he's likely taking over the starting spot. You got the Pittsburgh Steelers taking on the Denver Broncos. The Steelers, they beat the Falcons last week without scoring a freaking touchdown. Chris Boswell, all's well that Boswell. On top of that, TJ Watt is that guy. And Justin Fields, he was efficient. He was fine. Nothing too exciting. But then again, I don't know if you're going to see anything exciting with Russell Wilson. I just wanted to see him play against Denver. Meanwhile, they're taking on the Denver Broncos, who at times their defense looked pretty darn good. Forced 2 safeties, should have been 3. And then the offense happened. They couldn't get the run game going against Seattle. Bo Nix did struggle at times and threw some bad interceptions. And the Broncos, they're going to be figuring it out. They got a rookie QB. I don't think the sky is falling. After one game, you can't tell. But the Steelers defense, I think, is going to cause some significant problems. If they can't run against the Steelers and TJ Watt is able to have the same kind of effectiveness as he did against the Falcons, it's going to be a very long day for Bo Nix, that rookie QB. And so because of that, I am actually going to rock with the Steelers here to get the win. I went against the Steelers last week and they won. Last year, every time I picked against the Steelers, they won. So here, Steelers, I'm finally picking you to win, which means the Broncos will probably win. Do that at your discretion. But Steelers, gone to Super Bowl, but you ruined it because Russell Wilson isn't playing. So you know what? If you lose, you deserve to. Then, this should be a good one. You got the Cincinnati Bengals taking on the Kansas City Chiefs. They couldn't get this game last year because Joe Burrow was hurt, so they said, screw it, we're doing it in week 2. The Bengals, they sucked. They looked god-awful against the New England Patriots. Joe Burrow looks like he's dealing with some injuries. On top of that, they couldn't establish the run. The defense didn't really look good. And yeah, they just got punched in the mouth by the Patriots. Meanwhile, the Chiefs, they looked like they were already in midseason form. Rashee Rice looked great. Xavier Worthy, I know everybody talked about his 40 time, but he proved exactly who he was right out of the gate.
I'm still worthy.
And the Chiefs are probably going to be a team that are only going to get better as the weeks go on, which is just depressing. Their offense looked really efficient, and while they could have lost that game, or they could have at least gotten close to a tie at the end, their defense did enough. On top of that, they were able to get pressure on Lamar Jackson for a majority of the night, and while Lamar Jackson was able to at least get some yards, the Chiefs just proved that they are a damn good football team. Oh wait, nobody is shocked. This should be a fun game. I imagine the Bengals are going to put up a better fight than they did against the Patriots last week. God, you would hope so. I do see this being an 0-2 start, though, for Kitty Ghost Meow. And the Chiefs playing at Arrowhead, I think they'll continue their dominance. They'll get the win in what I think will be a close game. But right now, ain't nobody stopping Patrick Mahomes. Then on Sunday Night Football, you got the Chicago Bears taking on the Strouds. Last week, the Bears defense and special teams got Caleb Williams that 1-0 start.
I can't carry it for you, but I can carry you.
And I know Keenan Allen dropped a touchdown, but the Bears defense, which looked real good at the second half of last year, especially after they traded for Montez Sweat, and their special teams, were able to get that W. And Caleb Williams looked flawed. He looked like a rookie quarterback. The Titans defensive line is really good, and you just got to hope, if you're a Bears fan, that that offense improves as the weeks go on. But last week, the fact that your defense is playing at that level and your special teams is pretty good, besides Velus Jones Jr., you got to be pretty content with that. Meanwhile, the Strouds, the Houston Texans, were able to go into Indianapolis and had a great game. All three receivers played well. CJ Stroud completing fourth down conversions from his knees. And the Texans, they look like they are going to be a fun football team this year. Expectations are super high after last season. They went and got Stephon Diggs and Joe Mixon. Oh, and by the way, Joe Mixon, talk about a guy that I was very, very, very wrong about. I was really down on him after he left Cincinnati, but he came in last week and he proved me very, very wrong. And I'm very happy that I'm wrong there. If the Texans can have a great ground game to go along with their already stellar passing game, they're going to be a tough team to beat. Being played in Houston, I think the Bears defense will do a decent enough job of stopping CJ Stroud. However, I think there's too many weapons, and considering what we saw what the offense looked like for the Bears last week, I think the Texans defense should be able to handle whatever Caleb Williams throws at them. And so because of that, I am going with the Strouds to get the Sunday night win. Please, please beat the Bears, Texans. And finally, on September 16th, someone's birthday as well, you got the Bird Bowl as the Atlanta Falcons take on the Philadelphia Eagles. Yeah, and after hyping up that offense all offseason, Falcons fans, Kirk Cousins did not look good.
It tore me apart, but I learned an important lesson. You can't count on anyone.
Yeah, that offense left a lot to be desired. And while their defense did enough, because the Steelers didn't score a single touchdown, they still lost that game at home. And that is not the way you want to start this season, especially with expectations being as high as they were. Though, Kyle Pitts caught a couple of passes. They're taking on the Philadelphia Eagles, who with Saquon Barkley ran all over the Green Bay Packers. And while there's definitely some sloppiness on the offensive side of the ball, they still got over 400 yards total. So looking at the Eagles, their defensive line looked really good against the Packers, though their secondary did give up a bunch of yards to Jordan Love, and that game was really competitive. I imagine the Eagles are going to look much better at home, going up against an offense that struggled. And we know the Eagles can put up a ton of points. Saquon is going to be a monster. Devontae Smith is amazing, and A.J. Brown is doing A.J. Brown things. So I imagine the Eagles are going to get this win. Kirk Cousins can almost never play well against the Eagles. It's just historically true. The secondary usually tears him up, and Mitchell looked really good against the Packers last week. So because of that, I'm going with Philadelphia to start at 2-0. And Falcons fans, ugh. But let me know what you think down in the comments below. Who do you got winning this slate of games this week? Let me know. You know, I saw me at TomGrassiComedy.com or at TomGrassiComedy, all social media, see down below. A big shout and thank you to all the patrons and YouTube members for supporting this channel. And thank you so much for watching. I'm Tom Grassi. And as always, go Pack Go.